نسمو على النجم به نحيا بلا ذل حياة الأمن والسلم ودولتنا لقد قامت على الإسلام في ختم ورغم جهاد.
But you, regardless of whether there's a creator or not, even if you do believe there's a creator, it's still unnecessary in this day and age to use animals as objects.
Okay,
and to
so
treat them
shall
as
we
like
go
property.
back to this point anyway, right? Because it's important to discuss. How do we do research to establish drugs that works in very, very, high-risk diseases, very complex and lethal cancer?
Oh, okay. So what's your point?
So if you don't do, look, I am not saying anything about cruelty to animals because that's absolutely wrong, right?
But eating them for an unnecessary reason.
No, you should only eat to survive, maybe.
But you can eat something else. You can eat something else. You don't have to eat animals.
What about vegetables?
Yeah, but mate.
Wait.
You would be way more outraged if I was if I was beating a dog than if I was standing on a blade of grass.
No. This question is not about cruelty anymore. It's about eating. Do you eat plants and fruits and vegetables?
Yes.
Are they alive or dead?
They're alive.
Right.
But they're not sentient.
So now we're talking about
is the criteria.
sentient. Explain what you mean by sentient.
So the ability to experience pain, pleasure.
They experience pain.
No, they don't. No, they don't, mate.
Okay,
they don't have a central nervous system. They don't have a brain. Okay. I'm sorry, but you would be way more outraged if I was beating a dog than if I was snapping a branch off a tree, wouldn't you?
What's your name?
Sada.
I'm Mansoor.
You're sorry.
Mansoor.
Nice.
Studies have been done already, decades ago, where plants experience pain.
Not in the same way animals do.
You see now what's shifted?
And
we're
they don't experience pain.
Sada, we're shifting the goal every single time. Your argument seems
they
to be
react to stimuli, but they don't feel pain.
They do feel pain, and people have done experiments already. So you are now saying not to the level of pain that we experience. No, that's not the question. Do they experience pain? Yes, they do.
How? If they don't have a central nervous system and pain receptors like us and animals do, how can they feel pain? And also, if they did feel pain, do you not think plants would have evolved to a point where they could avoid pain?
You see, that's why the question about evolution. That's why we go back to the old discussion about the creator. Because the moment you bring an evolution idea,
why would the creator create plants or animals indeed to feel pain for us to then exploit
use them
for
an unnecessary reason?
Not unnecessary.
It is unnecessary in the UK.
In
the first world country, it's unnecessary to use animals.
Do you know you have enzymes in your digestive systems specifically there to utilize meat?
So what?
Do you know you have canine teeth to chew meat?
So what? We don't have to anymore.
Wait.
We don't have to anymore.
That is for biting into apples and biting through nuts. This could not tear through flesh.
So
yours could not tear through flesh.
What you don't realize is this: the system. It's not about relevance.
You're talking about biologically.
I'm talking about biologically. You are designed not to be a vegetarian.
But we don't need to use animals anymore. Nutrition is a numbers game.
My body?
So
you can get those numbers from plants.
Sardar and Brad, you're constantly shifting your argument. If your argument is animals don't suffer pain, yes they do. If your argument is, we are not designed to eat meat, yes you are designed.
How?
So
no, but
I just told you.
Even if we are,
why would you have enzymes to digest proteins from animals?
Yeah, but we don't need to anymore.
So it's not the question about we don't need to anymore because you've already designed.
Well, we don't need to anymore. Even if we can eat animals.
Okay.
Yeah, but why use an animal for an unnecessary reason?
So your argument. So your argument
healthy about using animals.
Okay. So your argument
healthy about using animals.
Your argument is no longer that we are designed or not. Yes, we are designed, but we don't. In fact,
how would you feel if you were that animal?
Let me put this argument forward. You shouldn't be eating plants at all. No animals, no plants. Evolve. Go into one step further. Don't eat plants at all. Maybe they have a little bit of pain experience. Don't eat plants and fruits and vegetables. Next step. What are you going to do? What are you going to eat?
You're going to die.
You're going to die. So you're going to be merciless, ruthless, eating vegetables to make you survive.
Yeah, of course.
What a selfish reason, Brad.
No, it's not.
Okay,
That's necessary.
Okay, so now you're saying if it's necessary, it's okay.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Okay.
how we live, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
it's necessary to eat plants.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
want to die early.
Yeah.
So you're fine with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we find that we can actually have animals and
Are those microphones? They are. Okay, I've never seen them.
they're not leeches.
Well, like dog isn't very tasty.
Yeah, go on.
Please go.
Yeah. So the question about necessity, eating. So you don't want to eat any animals, right?
We don't want to use animals.
Oh, it's not about eating now, but you like your
Use.
burgers.
It's about use.
Okay.
We shouldn't use them. We shouldn't treat them as objects of
Okay,
property.
so in fact, we agree a lot in terms of not exploiting them, not overeating them, and
Just not exploiting.
but you're not exploiting them.
Yeah.
I agree with you. We shouldn't be exploiting them. But in terms of research, the reason why I think it's necessary is
You mean like medical research?
medical research. If you don't do experiments in animals, your options is not computer simulations,
Right.
because they do not simulate the real environment a diseased body of a human being is.
Right.
So a healthy volunteer, even so, if they were to volunteer, and they're very unlikely to volunteer because you won't find healthy volunteers to.
It's obvious.
Medical trials.
Oh, that's okay. That's justified.
You know,
That's voluntary. That's voluntary. They're just getting paid for it.
Right. So you're saying if somebody.
They're
yeah,
consenting.
hey,
to it.
humans
So-
can give consent,
animals in
animals can't.
laboratories
So if
not
someone
give consent.
Okay, I don't understand this argument. If someone consents to be tortured, it's okay.
Of course.
I can't
Yeah,
believe
it's,
that.
it's consent, mate.
So basically, your argument is not about torture then. If a monkey were able to consent, you'd be okay with it.
Yeah, yeah, but they can't give consent. Animals can't give consent.
Yeah. So basically, it's nothing to do with torture itself as a
It's about
concept.
consent, yeah.
It's about consent.
Consent to use them, yeah.
Yeah, but I want you to think this carefully.
Go ahead.
You've moved away from this feeling of sympathy or empathy to other creation, whether it's an animal or a plant, away from all of this. So it's not about feelings anymore. It's about, yeah, this guy's consenting to be shot at in his head. It's okay. That's his choice, or her choice. Do you see that?
Sorry, say that again.
You've moved away. You've moved away from this feeling. You've divorced your feeling that is driven you to say, look, it's unnecessary. It's unjust. Unjust is.
Do you agree with?
But what you're doing is you've moved away from this. So basically,
No, we haven't.
so,
We haven't.
you know,
And it's nothing to
you
do
have
with
no
empathy, by the
feelings.
way. It's
And
nothing to do with empathy or compassion.
Yeah.
It's a basic level of respect.
Yeah, yeah.
I respect you. I'm not going to harm you.
respect. So your respect is not to do with how people feel pain and suffer. Your concept of respect is as long as they get paid and they're consenting, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's totally up to them.
So now that's all. Now you're saying is it's all about greed. It's all about money. It's all about your own consent of how you abuse your own self.
The fact of the matter is, animals are innocent. They've done nothing wrong.
Humans,
And we
humans. That's about humans. The humans that consent to be tortured, you have no problem with that.
because they agree to it.
Yeah. So
I'm not them. I can't choose for them.
So let's understand something. If a human is agreeing to be raped, you have no problem with that.
I'd find it questionable, but at least they're giving consent.
If they're
How
giving
is it- it's
consent
not
to be
con-
raped,
It's not consent if they're consenting
no,
to
no,
be raped.
no, no.
And we're fine with that.
listen.
That's an oxymoron. Rape can never be happen without consent.
It's difficult, but if a person blanketly said, okay, that's fine, and then everyone,
Well, some
violates
people are
her.
into really rough sex. So
Yeah,
what?
that's not about rough sex. It's just a concept. I mean, okay, mutilation of the body. Chop me off in pieces. And you're saying as long as it's okay, they're consenting, it's okay.
Yeah. They consent to it. Yeah.
Do you see
not
the
my
problem
body,
with
it's
that?
theirs.
Like it. I would ask them why. Why do you want to harm yourself? But
Yeah, but you're okay with it. Just killing them. That is why I bring you back to the question that I was trying to address is, as human beings, we should live our life according to the best standards. If you are trying to put forward a standard where don't do things unnecessarily and unjustly, agreed.
To animals.
What? To everything.
To every sentient being.
Everything.
Every
Look,
sentient being, not everything.
Look.
Sentient being.
If you cut the flow of water to a land which is fertilized by the water, I consider this to be unjust. But you are saying it's not a sentient being. Land is not sentient. What if it becomes dry and millions of people die because of starvation afterwards because of the drought? I would say, look, your way of thinking and my way of thinking is, I'm trying to use my way of thinking from Islam. Islam says, look after yourself, look after the environment, look after your fellow beings. So if
When you say beings,
look after the fellow environment, beings means your animals. Let me give you two examples. Yeah, one with the human being and one with the animals. So when we eat animals, chicken or a cow or a sheep,
Or a dog
whatever,
or a
right?
cat.
We don't eat dogs and cats.
Well, some people do.
Some people do. There are certain things we eat, certain things we don't eat, and there is a reason for it. But in general, when we say we want to eat these things, we can't just eat them. We take the life away with the permission of God that God has given us, only with the permission of God. We say Bismillah,
Can I ask you
Allahu
a
Akbar.
question? Can I ask you a question?
Can I finish these 2 points and then you can ask, right? So the life that we take away is with the permission of God. But how do we take a life? For example, when we slaughter these animals, when we slaughter, right?
What if you've got a mountain?
We don't slaughter in front of another animal because we know they understand. Yes, we know they will, when they see, they experience this and they feel, and you can see how they react. And we want to slaughter them in a way which is most merciful way, so they don't experience the pain.
So animals
That's why.
are worthy of moral consideration then?
That's not the question about morality yet.
No, but you are.
Mercy. So when we slaughter them in the most merciful way with the permission of God.
But they have an interest in living.
You see, I'm just putting forward one argument about showing the mercy.
let him finish.
Second thing, about human beings. If, for example, I am wealthy enough to sustain my life with food, and my neighbor goes hungry and starves to death, our Prophet ﷺ said that I am not even a believer. I'm not even a believer in Islam, in his prophethood. That a believing person, that he is fully fed and his neighbor goes hungry in starvation. That shows the responsibility that we have for our neighbors. Even our neighbors have a right. They should not go hungry and starve to death if we have the means to help them. Yeah? So you can see the responsibility that we have. Islam provides this standard of living, a standard of interaction, a standard of behavior between all the creation. So one, I showed you about the animals, and I showed you about the dead land, and the water flowing, dry land, and about the animals. We have to be living in a way which is, something that is best standards of living. So this is what we're trying to invite you to, that if you look at your way of living, you are always constantly trying to live a life which is noble, which is peaceful, which is just, which is humane, which is merciful. You're trying to live your life as the best way of living, right? Experience. Right. These living standards can either come from our experiences, and we make errors in our experience as we learn, or it can come from God through his prophets and messengers. Right. What we are saying is, God the Creator has given us these standards of living throughout the ages, through the prophets and messengers, and the last prophet being Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that we can perfect the nobility of our character. And this is what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was raised. One of the main reasons, he says, "Bu'ithtu li'utammima makarimul akhlaq." I have raised to perfect and raised to perfection the nobility of the character. You are noble, but you can perfect this character of yours. And this is what Islam does. Islam is not about, you just having some kind of cultish living. It's a living where it's the best way of living in relation to your Creator and your purpose. So you're fulfilling your purpose, and you are... Excellent question. What is the purpose of your lung?
My lungs, to breathe.
Your ears, balance and hearing.
Yeah.
So we have purposes.
To live? Is that what you're saying?
No. What is the purpose of every organs of your body seems to quite clearly have functions and purposes that are not set by you and me. As a whole, what is the purpose that is not set by you and me?
The purpose that is not set by you and me, but set by the Creator.
It has to be something that we haven't set. So we need to know what it is. So ultimately,
Technically, it's to breed. Technically, it's to breed.
what if someone's sterile? They have no purpose in life?
No, I don't think our purpose is to breed. I don't think we should breed. There's too many humans.
Yeah. So you've answered your one question.
Yeah.
The purpose of life is not just to breed. Okay. This is maybe something that is something natural progression of life. So life continues through this process of offspring, but that's not the purpose. Yeah? Some people don't have children. That doesn't mean they have no purpose, and that's it.
I'm not going to have children.
I'm sure you will.
I won't.
Okay, let's leave that discussion for another time. What we say is the purpose of our creation, of our existence here, we cannot determine ourselves.
Yeah.
Because all of our determination will be subjective. The only way we can know is when the Creator tells us what's the purpose of our creation. So in the Quran, our Creator tells us our purpose of creation is to worship.
Okay. Worship who?
Worship our Creator.
I would like to know how is it the only way to know how we are created? How is it
The only way to know our purpose, because we will have all these ideas.
How is it the only way? You have to explain.
Okay, our purpose is to breed. This is one example, right? Is that the only and
This is the only
purpose?
conclusive evidence we can get from the evidence. Apart from
Is that the purpose?
no, this is the only conclusive purpose of life, not just our life, the whole life.
I'm saying this
We
is
can get
this is just
through
a
evidence,
process.
through evidence.
Yeah, but that may not be the purpose. That's just how it is.
What other purpose? Whatever other purpose there is, there has to be an evidence for it. Otherwise, there is no need to believe in it.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, life progresses through this procreation. It seems to me this is how the system is of life, of living creatures. You don't teach animals to procreate. It's already built in. It's already built in. Natural processes, right? But it's not the purpose. If something is already built in, it doesn't tell you what the purpose of this living is.
Well, that is the reason it's built in, because this is the only reason it's built in, so that the life can survive.
For what reason? Exactly.
Just to survive. Just to survive.
Just to survive is not the reason. Survival is the process.
Do you know what? I think I'm going to let you two carry on. Okay.
Nice talking to you. Have you read the Quran?
I have not. Can I read it online?
You can read it online.
Okay. Is it in obviously English translation?
English translation available. Read multiple translations. So what you will see that if you read in a topical way, what's the concept of God? Our purpose in this life, how we should be living. Prophets. What happens after we die? Is that the end of it? Is there such a thing called justice? And if there is there such a thing called hellfire and paradise? If you understand these concepts first about God, about role of prophethood, about the hereafter, and your purpose in this life, you will see that you will find the directions. And next time we talk, we can have a discussion on that one. Is that okay, Brad? Nice talking to you.
Yeah, take care.
Take care. What's your name? Najib. You're a Muslim? Okay, what religion are you? There is only one God. If there were many gods, what would we expect?
I would support it by the evidence of so many religions.
Okay, let's.
If there is not many religions in the world, if there's one religion, then I would have a strong chance of believing it. But because there's so many religions and so many different gods, I guess probably more than 5,000 gods.
Let's take this a bit rationally, right? If there are more than one God, we can take two to begin with and see what we expect. The concept of God that we have is
We are first assuming some gods or a god exists. Then we are coming.
it's not
into this
assuming.
discussion.
This is the conclusion that we arrive at.
We haven't arrived at a conclusion of whether a god exists or not.
So, do you believe?
But we can look into it first.
Okay.
We can establish that first, and then we can
Fair
come
enough.
back.
Fair enough. Right. So, to understand the concept of more than one God and how rational it is,
Rational would be a thing that is
it needs to make sense to you.
your or my rationality,
It needs to make
and
sense to both of us.
not in a rationality of a higher being, right?
It needs to make sense to us, right? Agreed?
Yeah.
It needs to make sense to us. Okay. The concept of God or the Creator is such that God is the creator of all this cosmos.
I have a question over here in the beginning. Does, if there's a God or multiple gods exist, does they have to make sense to us rationally?
Everything needs to make sense to us in some degree or another.
According to our rationality, does a God needs to make sense?
Anything in our life, to some degree or another, it has to make sense to us. Otherwise, you might be saying, look, am I awake or not?
It's not.
Are you awake?
No, this is not. I'm not going on that side. I'm just asking a simple question. Like, you're trying to establish about one God or multiple gods.
Yes.
But before we do that, you put a condition that it has to come into our rationality, right?
No, it needs to make sense.
It needs to make sense. It has to be rational, which means according to our rationality, right? So is it a condition? Is it a condition that a God has to satisfy?
It's not God satisfying. It's in our discussion.
But then,
If we are discussing about an external entity outside of ourselves, you and me, right? Whether this is tree.
so if let's say, sorry to interrupt. Let's say that entity, whichever we are trying to explain, if he's in another dimension or he has different powers or ways of working that we don't know, you and I don't know, it might seem unrational to us, right? But it might be the way the God works, right?
But there are some elements that you will have to conclude based on the reality that you see. Yeah?
That is fine, but we cannot then put this condition that God has to satisfy rationality or multiple gods has
It's not
to.
God satisfying rationality. We are using our brains to conclude.
So if let's agree on
And
that.
our speculations
So why don't
from
we-
this
Why don't we go
thinking,
stepwise?
no, our speculations of what we think God should be or God is going to be will be confirmed by revelation or guidance or messages directly from this God.
The revelations is going to come much later.
Yeah, I say confirmation comes
So
afterwards.
let's do you think is it reasonable to agree that the only way to decide between good and bad or right religion and wrong religion or if there's a religion or not is our rationality and our five senses? Or do we have another thing apart from that?
Let's understand something.
As a
How many
human,
sen- how many senses
I'm
do we
asking
have?
this.
Okay, for us to understand something, conclude something, what are the tools that we have?
I have sense of touch, sense of hearing, seeing, smelling.
Five senses.
Smelling, five senses,
Anything else?
and a brain to make sense of those,
Sure.
interpret those signals.
That's all I'm asking. In this discussion, use those to arrive at a sound
Not in
conclusion.
just this discussion. Let's in all aspects of our life.
Of course.
Because
But
these are
in
the
this
only
discussion-
tools we have, right?
Exactly.
So if I 100% agree that these are only tools we have nothing else. So if these tools leads us on a path that is not right, technically that wouldn't be our fault because these are the only tools we have, right? Okay, let's go on.
Sure. So, talking about the concept of multiple creators, if we are believing in a concept or we think there's a
But
concept,
we are jumping the point.
let's jump there.
We are jumping
Do you
the point.
accept that you exist?
I accept that I exist.
Sure. You are something and I'm something?
We are human beings. We are, exactly, and he's a human being. All of us are human beings.
Could there be a time in the past where there was absolute nothingness?
It could be. It could be. We don't know.
Let me explain to
We
you what I
don't
mean
know.
by absolute nothingness. Absolute nothingness is the absence of everything. So there is no something, there are no senses, there is nothing within this nothingness. No energy,
But this is
no consciousness.
this is nothing you are defining, right?
I'm explaining to you.
This is nothing you are defining. It could be your opinion.
Do you agree with that?
It could be a scientist's opinion.
Sure. Do you agree with my definition?
But what I'm saying, because you see, if you make a claim, I don't have to agree with it straight away. I have to look into it. I have to see how the
So
things
now I'm
are.
asking you, the nothingness that I'm describing.
But the point I'm trying to explain over here is you must also take it just as an opinion and not a conclusive proof of something. It could be a different nothing. It could be a nothing.
The nothing that I'm
reality.
postulating to you in this discussion is this. It is the absence of everything.
So if this nothing does not exist, but another nothing exists where there's, let's say maybe a
So another nothing. Define what is another nothing.
it could be thousands many nothings. We
Such
don't
as,
know.
define
Okay,
each of your nothings.
let's say there's a nothing where there's space,
That's not nothing.
no time.
That's not nothing. That's something.
It could be something. It could be nothing.
That's not nothing.
You see,
No, straight away I will disagree with you. That's something. It's not nothing.
there is no such thing as absolute nothing.
So the concept you understand, right?
To the concept that I understand,
Good. So that's what I'm saying. There's an absolute nothingness which cannot really exist. Is the absence of something and everything.
not everything. How would you say everything?
That nothing which doesn't exist is the absence of everything. It doesn't have anything at all.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So that nothing you understood.
But it has still something in it.
No.
That nothing still has something in it.
what
It
does it
has
have?
quantum reality.
No, that's something. That's not nothing.
But this is how it does.
No, I'm telling you about a
see, there's
concept which I am asking you to consider. Not what you're trying to
Okay.
put forward an argument to then you know.
Let's go about it. You see, there's one nothing that you presented. That's one nothing that I
But your
presented.
nothing, I disagree. It's something.
That is
so
fine.
Deal with my nothing.
That is fine. You have the right to disagree. But what I'm trying to say over here is,
Are you going to deal with my nothing?
yeah, okay, whatever that nothing that you say,
Yes. Did you understand what my concept of nothing
you say
is?
there's absolute nothing over there,
Right.
not even space, not even time, not
Right.
even quantum particles.
Sure.
Okay.
So-
Let's say if there's a nothing like yours exists.
From this nothing, can you get something?
If that nothing exists, maybe not. I don't know. This is the whole point. I don't know.
If that nothing has nothing in it, has no energy, no power, no quantum fluctuations, no hadrons, no gluons, no leptons, we're talking about absence of everything. It cannot produce anything.
Okay. You see, what you're saying now is based on your rationality, on the observations that you have seen, right? Or are you coming from a different universe?
Are you now trying to?
Are you coming from a different universe?
No. Are you not trying to engage with the discussion?
I am trying to
Right.
engage with the
So
discussion.
look, the nothing that I've tried to make you conceptualize is a nothing by definition cannot make something.
Okay, the nothing that you're trying to define,
Not trying, I've already defined it.
the nothing that you have defined, we don't know nothing about that nothing, right?
I just gave you what this nothing in my example is.
It could be or it could not be.
What could be? I'm saying if we have a concept like this, clearly something like you and me cannot originate from that nothingness.
How would you know? This is the point. How would you
I just
know?
told you. Because that nothing, as I've defined,
You are
cannot
putting-
produce anything.
How would you know? That's the whole point. Until you have some equation, some proof of it. That look, this nothing
given you the
cannot. How is it?
Okay. What do the rocks dream of?
I don't know.
Do they dream of something?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I don't know for sure.
So you know
That's the whole
okay.
point.
Do you know for sure anything?
I know for sure that I exist.
Are you sure about that?
I know for sure this whole world
Are you
exists
sure about that? How are you sure?
through my senses.
Senses. But you could be a brain in a jar, having this.
Could be. Could be.
So you're not sure then? When you say could be, then you're not sure. So are you sure about anything?
Yes, this is my existence.
No. You could be a brain in a jar, or alternatively, a computer simulation. You think you're actually speaking to me in Speaker's Corner.
Well, that's the whole point. That the only.
How can you be sure?
Okay, I'm telling you now. That only way I can be sure is through what I experience, right? Through my senses, through
So
my
you didn't
brain.
understand my argument.
I understood. Now let me proceed with it. Now, when through these senses, when I'm trying to make the sense of the whole world, I'm presented with our religion and another religion and another religion, right? which have their own concept of nothingness, right? You have a concept of nothingness according to your religion where there was nothing. Maybe a Hindu has a concept of nothingness where there is Krishna and he came into being and he created everything, and there's another concept, and then there's another concept. So there is not just one nothing. There could be many nothings where many gods could come in and create the universe, right? What my concern is, based on my senses, on rationality, what concept of this universe that I can make, which is good for me and for the whole universe, for the people living around me, for the universe. Not something that is just a philosophical child of somebody's mind and not good for anything in the whole world. You understand? If we go by what you are trying to do, we have seen this happen in Middle East, in Islamic world. These philosophical discussions going on throughout the history, not producing any fruitful results. But when we turn to science over here, you understand, through this concept that okay, let's only go by what rationale tells us.
I understand you.
And try to make concept. If we go through this process, we can have evidence that could be tested in India or in Afghanistan.
Just clarify one thing.
Yeah.
Are you dreaming now or awake?
I'm awake. Yeah.
How do you know?
So as I said, through my senses.
Okay, I'll tell you. Have you ever had a dream?
Yeah.
In your dream, did you really think that you are there having that experience through your senses? Were you really having the experience that you were in a beach in Hawaii or whatever?
Yep.
But you weren't there physically, were you?
Exactly.
So you did not physically experience any of these things. But in your dream, you were what? Deceived.
Okay.
Hang on.
That's the whole
question.
point.
No, the question is about reality. Now you said you are sure about the reality.
Yeah.
In your dream, you felt real, but it wasn't real.
Okay. Now.
So how are you sure that you're not dreaming right now?
Okay. This is my whole point, sir. This is what I'm trying to explain to you over here. Whatever happened in the dream is not going to help me anyway.
That's the point. The point is about how do we establish the reality? Because you said, our experiences. So when I gave you an example of nothingness, for some reason, I know you're an intelligent man, you realize that nothingness cannot make something like you. So you are not willing to engage with that nothingness. And instead you're putting forward. You are
trying to ask me a question about something that you've just explained to me, that I don't know whether it exists the way you are trying to explain to me. And then you're trying to put like properties to that universe or that nothingness, which we have no proof of, which you just think or thought of.
When you say proof, do you have proof of anything?
Evidence.
No. Evidence of anything. I challenge you to bring forward proof of anything for anything in this reality. Okay, now hang on. This chain, what's it made of?
Silver.
What's your proof that it's silver?
It's silver because through its atoms.
What's the proof it's silver? Have you seen silver atoms?
I've read about it, I've studied
read about it.
and I have the properties. I know the properties of silver. Silver is a metal.
You do not. Have you seen the atoms of silver?
I don't have to see it.
So that particular chain.
You can call it gold.
No.
You can call gold silver. It does not matter. The name does not matter.
I want to show to you the level of evidence that you operate with.
Okay.
That particular piece of chain made of silver, you have not put under a chemical test to determine it's silver, have you? You've taken testimonies of other people.
Seller's word for it.
Testimonies of other people. Yep. And that counted as an evidence to you. It wasn't your experience. Do you see where we're going now? It wasn't your experience that determined the conclusion of your accepting something. Simply testimony of others led you to accept, that's fine. If I told you, I accept the testimony of people, trustworthy people, all the way going back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he received revelation from God, that we are created for a purpose and the Quran is a revelation, you would have no quarrel with me using the same standard that you're using of testimony. I don't have to experience directly seeing God.
Can I?
Do you agree or disagree?
Let me see it. Now this chain, the person I've bought it from, he said silver, yeah?
Testimony.
His testimony, what I did, I came back, I tested it.
Tested it with what?
I wore it on. Right? It had a color. Let's say the color faded, it was not silver. For example, how do I know it's silver? Okay, silver is a metal. It has this properties.
Maybe platinum?
let's say silver has this properties, right? Now when I come back home, let's say it's not silver, and I've been conned it's a cheap metal. The color is going to wear off, right?
It's a precious metal, but not silver.
Then the guy is a moron who sold it to me for cheap.
But then you are still unsure that this is silver.
But
you've only taken by testimony. You've accepted it as enough for you to accept.
But what I'm trying to say over here is, for silver, I have a standard set by some people, which
you didn't test.
Which the whole point over here is which me and everybody in the world agrees with. You understand? Nobody tested it.
I'll tell you why I don't understand.
So this is not silver.
Raju, let me tell you what I don't understand. Your level of accepting of evidence is own experience, your senses. That's the tools. But you have accepted the words and testimonies of someone as proof. For example, have you done an image scan of your pancreas? Does it exist? Are you sure about it? What's the proof?
You can probably scan me.
No.
Now you can scan me for it now.
See, you're saying I can prove it, but that's not the proof.
But
this is a hope that it exists.
So
you haven't proven it already, have you?
Hold on a second. Let's not debate this point. Let's go by the testimony.
No.
Let's go by the testimony. Let's go by the testimony.
Do you know why?
For a second, let's go by the testimony. You're advocating it. Let's go by it for a second.
I'm not advocating it. I'm saying you accept it.
You are advocating the testimony. Let's go by it. So you say some guy said to Muhammad, right?
No. You misunderstood my argument.
Like proper.
No, you misunderstood. So I have to clarify to you.
Go on.
You put forward the level of acceptability of proof.
Yeah.
If there's a testimony, it's sufficient.
That's
your level of acceptability.
This is what I'm trying to tell you, sir. Just the testimony is not sufficient.
Okay.
You see,
what did you do for your chain?
With the silver.
Yeah, what did you do?
You see, with the silver, it's just a small part of my life, right? I would spend 30 or 50 pounds to buy it. I wouldn't think much about it. But when I'm trying to spend my life...
Did you prove it's silver?
Listen, when I'm trying to spend my life, or when I'm trying to make sense of the whole world, I have to go by something very different. That is the whole point. I would pay much more attention to the concept of the world than to a chain, right?
Did you notice one thing though?
Let's go by...
We're going by principles. We're establishing the principles which we use to accept
exactly.
proof.
Let's translate that principle there.
My example of a chain is just a mundane example to illustrate this principle.
I'm trying to tell you here. Let's put that principle on another example. If somebody is born in India and he has the testimony of a pandit that his way of life is right, he goes about his way of the world thinking that this is how the world is created, right? In another part of the world, it's different. Through the same process of testimony, what you're saying, what you're trying to advocate,
I'm not
what you're saying, what you're saying.
Can you stop saying that, please?
Okay, listen.
Right? I am not advocating testimony here because my argument of testimony is a different way of argumentation. I just pointed that it is your argument. Testimony was what you are advocating.
This one chain does not represent the whole way of my perception of the world, right?
Sure.
Let me tell you something.
Before you tell me, have you seen your brains?
So again, the same thing. The same thing with,
it's not about
with the pancreas, with the brain.
The reason why I'm saying this, I'll tell you why the reason. So I know you want to make a point, but I'll give you the opportunity. No, what I'm saying, every